Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. So we had we talked to teachers and parents. We had surveys and focus groups, and what we found was that even before the pandemic, we felt disconnected. Our teachers didn't feel connected or valued within the school, and our parents and families felt isolated and alienated. So we discovered that we were in a pandemic long before COVID hit. And so one of the recommendations was that we really make sure that we develop some systems to build community for teachers and parents moving forward. And and another milestone for us was we wanted to really rally behind the class of 2020, understanding that the school year ended abruptly. And so we had a class of 2020 virtual celebration. We honored students from across the metro, and some of the well-known well-wishers were Mayor Lucas. We had Jackson County Executive Frank White. We had John Sherman, owner of the Royals, Kansas City Chief Cornerback Charvarius Ward. And our keynote speaker was Johnny Gordon, who is a KCPS grad. He went through KCPS through the eighth grade, and then his family moved to Virginia, and he graduated class of 2020 at Old Dominion University. And so he shared what it was like navigating college with Asperger's, and his talk about representation matters. Just to see someone who's just like you and who made it and whose message was "I did it, you can do it too." Very powerful and very of inspirational. And then we also had a virtual transition fair afterwards. And so we were able to walk and talk families through the processes to make sure they had a benefits package, to understand, to make sure that they had a support coordinator, and to really kind of talk them through the process, connect them through an A to Z guide of post-secondary resources. And that transition fair was hosted by Missouri Governor Parson. He gave us well wishes. So we had quite the unplanned year of 2020. And then here we were in 21 moving forward, working on growth. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to, okay, I had to click. And so what we realized post George Floyd, um, and with that Out of the Shadows webinar, is the very strong intersection between race and ability that just simply hasn't been focused on enough. And so one person who really speaks very passionately is Valissa Thompson. She is the creator of the hashtag disability to white. And she talks about this intersection. And she says that, you know, if on the Black side, it's not enough to just embrace me because of my race and advocate for me on my racial side, you have to also advocate for me for on the disability side. And on the disability side, you can't simply welcome me to the disability space. You also have to champion my race and my ethnicity. And so we realized that as we were dissecting the different data and just showing across the board, as marginalized as the disability population is within the overall population, that when you added race, when you added Blackness on top of disabilities, overall, Black students and youth with disabilities were leaving high school. They were the least likely to be engaged after high school. They were had the most health and mental health outcomes. They were the most likely to be incarcerated. And so when we saw across the board that Black youth with disabilities were at an even lower rate, we realized we had to really um, kind of revamp our programs to reflect that and to make sure that these youth could be successful. And so one of the ways that we were doing this is through our partnership with Kansas City Public Schools. KCPS has focused on making sure that it was an equitable school for every population, every student served. And so we wanted to make sure that that equity umbrella covered students with disabilities. And so we kind of propose that just like all students were exposed to college and career navigation, we wanted to really make sure that we were that community partner to connect students with post-secondary resources instead of the current system, which really most schools operate on, which is that the students and parents are on their own to explore the landscape and to figure out the benefits maze. And so I wanted to kind of do a couple of things on this slide. On the one end, on the real world learning side, we're looking at doing such things as, and these are just simple things. I'm Linda and Sean know I'm not deep at all. Okay, so what we wanted to do was really, we feel like the resources are in the system. We're not talking about asking for like an avalanche of new monies. Simple things like there's not enough job coaches going around. And that was pre-COVID. It was just a constant turnover and a low supply. And so we said, well, then why don't we look at hosting a cohort where we will work to get family and friends of these youth trained so that they can support these youth in hands-on job activities. They can basically play that role and they can be compensated through government benefits sources. Another way that we want to do this is we want to host a Discovering Personal Genius cohort. Discovering Personal Genius, or DPG, is a curriculum that is originated by Griffin Hammis, and they are the nation's leading customized disability and employment specialists. And their notion is no more begging employers to create jobs for these kids, in which they basically say, okay, we got 10 custodial slots. We throw the youth in the slots. They fail miserably because they didn't ask to be there. They weren't matched appropriately. And then we document the heck out of their behavior. And now, on top of their challenges, they now have a record that's going to impede on their ability to be employed. Griffin Hammett says no more of that. What we're going to do is we're going to have a meeting with everyone who knows this child well, the family, the teachers and school staff. It could be Boy Scouts, it could be church youth leaders, whoever knows the child. We're going to all talk about their interests, their skills, and from that meeting, four things will emerge. The child is interested in culinary, the child is interested in technology, working with animals, and the arts, for example. And then from those four themes, we have 20 hands-on activities within those four themes. Whichever area that child really flourishes in, that's the career path to follow. And so that is another real world learning solution that we are looking at launching with KCPS and charter school students. Another deal is I tell people I worked 11 years at Metropolitan Community College, and I always wonder why disabilities were kind of eliminated. And then being on the disability side, I realized there was such a disconnect. When we all explored college, we visited, we got a taste of the campus, we visited the dorms, and we mentally decorated our dorms. We could see ourselves eating in the cafeteria. And after we got excited about that experience, they followed up with us and said, we want you to be a part of our family. Here's FAFSA information. Here's application deadlines and admissions deadlines. We on the disability side, we lead with the processes and paperwork. Give me your personal information, fill out these forms, and then we just kind of expect parents and students to just figure it out on their own. So we are starting with that same model of helping families explore college opportunities, job training and employment opportunities, and then following up with their government benefits process that will be customized for the career path that they're following. And as far as the PBS, the 3 tiers, this is the perfect example of what works. So on the primary prevention side, we are looking at really partnering to ensure that all teachers and school staff are really knowledgeable about the transition process and that they're partners in these students' learning, just like they are when they're partnering with general ed students. On that secondary level, of course, that level is really more customized for students with IEPs. And so that's where the bus tours and the Discovering Personal Genius and the cohorts really customized to meet these students where they are. And then even at that tertiary prevention level, we're realizing that all of these tools are necessary, but none of them will be beneficial if the student's inner capacity is not strong. And so starting July 1 of 22, we will have social workers employed with the Transition Academy. So we'll be working with them on mental health and social emotional learning support so that we can really ensure that these youth are successful after high school. And then as we were talking about the impact of what happens when we do not give students the social, emotional, and mental health support that they need, when they fall through the cracks, and when we focus strictly on compliance and not on really caring and compassion, there is a price that all of society plays. And so nowhere is that more evident in the movie Off the Rails. It's a documentary about Darius McCullum in New York. And it shows how the system failed him. And we're going to be hosting a free community-wide screening on Friday, December 10th at 7 p.m. at the Gym Theater in 18th and Vine. And we're inviting everyone to come. And for those who cannot come in person, the event will also be live streamed. And it's hosted by Fox 4 movie critic Sean Edwards. And so we're going to have a really a good event to really sit down and to understand how in the world the system works. And I wanted to show a trailer, if that's okay. Okay, it's like 2 minutes. Okay.
You might have to share a different portion of your screen.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is it
That's
working?
okay. Just pause it. I think it's
years I have operated trains.
Okay, I'm
in
sorry.
New Jersey
I'm
subway
pressing.
system, Metro North.
Okay, let me go back just a smidge And then let's see, if I push full screen, is that better?
Um,
Can you all see the screen?
what I can see is your presentation with the,
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Let's see, okay, maybe. Okay, so the video was not playing.
correct.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, do I have to stop sharing and then go to the video screen?
Yeah,
Okay, I'm learning little by little. Okay, let's try it from here. Let's see. Mhm.
oh,
Okay,
there it is.
that it? Okay, cool. Here we go.
My name is Darius McCullum. Over the years, I have operated trains in the New York City subway system, Metro North, New Jersey Transit, and yet I have never been an employee of any of these agencies.
Well, a Manhattan man is getting a free ride to prison.
McCollum, said to have an encyclopedic knowledge of all things transit related.
All of his crimes were victimless. He would safely make all of the stops, make the announcements.
He says, I'm volunteering my time, as if he's a high schooler getting community service hours.
Now, he's been picked up 20 times for the same thing. McCollum claims to have commandeered more than 100 buses for joy rides over the past 30 years.
McCollum has such a lengthy rap sheet of transit-related crimes. He has his own Wikipedia page.
Because I have Asperger's syndrome, I have trouble making friends. I didn't want to be bullied. I didn't want to be picked on. I didn't want to have to be beaten up.
When he was young, when he was assaulted, he lost that sense of value as to who he is. Wearing a uniform creates a sense of value for Darius.
It was like I was married to the MTA.
He can't help it. My son, he doesn't belong there because he doesn't hurt anybody.
While he was in jail, he never got any therapy.
There's a possibility that I can definitely die in jail.
He has been stuck in this revolving door for his whole entire life.
He's an individual that corrections doesn't know how to handle, doesn't want to handle, and doesn't have the money or the support to figure it out.
So let's see.
So are you going to be able to share that stuff with us, Kim, so we can disseminate it on our side
I
for
sure
the
will.
online streaming?
I sure will. I will send everyone an invite and would appreciate if you all could push it out to your networks.
Absolutely.
We want to, Darius's story, it haunts me because my son, like him, loves trains. And I'm operating at it from saying, hey, if that's your thing, you've been loving trains since you were 2, we're going to explore some career paths, some passions around that. And I tell you, every time I watch any of the promo and when I watch the documentary, it just literally broke my heart. And so we want to, that is going to be a big part of, it's going to be our end of the year programming event to mobilize the community around the issue. But we want to make sure that it is a jumping off part. It is a catalyst for mobilizing our community around this topic to make sure that there are no more Dariuses. And so we have a post-event agenda in which we will form a steering committee. And that committee will be cross sectors. So will be individuals from the disabilities community, but there'll also be members of other sectors, other thought partners who can work with us on the data and to apply a lens of a transformational lens to this work. And it's always good to have fresh perspectives. And so that steering committee will be announced next year for moving us forward. That committee will oversee listening sessions. So we'll take a look at those systemic issues that impact our students and our family. And so it'll talk about topics like education and employment. It'll talk about the criminal justice system and also the government benefits maze, and then these policy and advocacy issues that are so desperately needed. Our families have to navigate so many different systems in order to arrive at results. And so understanding how those play together and how complicated and nuanced they are is absolutely necessary. And at the end of the rainbow here, we want to make sure that we don't simply have a report that will be posted on our website or that's going to collect dust. We want to make sure that we have an action plan for Greater Kansas City. And so for the first time, to my knowledge, we will have a Greater Kansas City State of Disabilities and Transition Action Plan. It'll be steeped in 3 tenets. We will first of all have a landscape analysis in which we will really immerse ourselves in the data around the topics that are the focus of each of our listening sessions. We will also explore best practices so that we can learn from those who are getting it right. And then finally, we will make recommendations. How do we move forward to ensure that we close the school to prison pipeline that impacted Darius McCullum and so many others like him? And then finally, I wanted to wrap up with the phrase, none of us are free until all of us is free. With any underserved, marginalized population, it takes those of us who know better to look up from the weeds in the fields and to say something's got to change. And so our model is not complicated at all, as you can see. The work that we're doing is really what we have done for the general population. We have zeroed in on how to support Black students, Latinx students. We've talked about how do we get more women in STEM fields. We've done this since the beginning of time, and it is time that we really look at youth with disabilities and how they can be productive, contributing members of society. And we know that this model that is being developed to really improve transaction outcomes, specifically for poor Black students with disabilities. It's going to be, the solution will be developed with them, and it will be tested on them. But we do know that if it works for them, the ones who have the worst outcomes, that we know it is the solution that will work with everyone. And so the goal is freedom, and we invite everyone to join us on this freedom journey because it is time. And that's all I have.
Well, that's quite a lot.
Thank
It's
you.
really quite a lot, Kim. And, I just have to say, sitting on this work group in Kansas, that part of what is on there is not so much seen through the lens of Black individuals with disabilities, but through the lens of individuals with disability at that transition age, because there's
Yes,
really no support across the board,
exactly.
right? And the different, as you call them, government funding agencies, the different access points, they're siloed.
They
And
are.
so people don't often understand that if you're an individual with a disability going through the IEP process at school, you should be in contact with Voc Rehab by the time you're, I think it's 13. Isn't that
Mhm.
right, Sean? Is it 13?
When you're 14,
14.
and
No.
technically pre-ETS, which is a wing of VR that serves 14 to 21-year-olds who are in school, should be starting at 14. They just signed an MOU between KSDE and VR around pre-ETS services and VR access, just like a couple months ago in Kansas. So there should be efforts rolling out right now to better integrate VR with schools. They also are basically doubling the number of VR counselors in the state, and they're engaged in efforts to hire them like right now. So VR got a new director last year and is doing substantial changes to VR in Kansas. But right now, people don't have good access to VR, good access to VR vendors. It's not a quick process. All those kind of concerns are still there.
I dropped a link in the chat and it goes to UNT, so probably University of North Texas. And it's about this Discover Genius program that you were talking about, Kim.
Okay.
And Sean, I sent that to you because, I think we should give it to the state. So Megan, do you I guess I should say Kim, Megan says she has a Kansas City based kiddo that she's been thinking about throughout this presentation.
Mm.
The other thing is, I know that you had been talking about trying to start a website. I don't know if you've been able to do that, where that helps people navigate these different systems.
Yes.
Do you have a recommendation for Megan?
That tech platform, we're actually seeking funding to build it as we speak. And so, because as we all know, it's one thing to build it, but it's another thing to keep it updated. And so we're working on support for that as we speak. One thing that we did yesterday, we had a disability employment stakeholders luncheon. And it was just kind of a pilot. KCPS was there, Job One was there, myself, and then my team, Kate, Georgia, Jennifer. We just had kind of a informal, casual talk. I kind of showed them a presentation of what we were doing as far as the bus tours and the cohorts and things, and of course the documentary screening. And we ended up just having a really good exchange about the system and about ways that we can collaborate together. And so the overwhelming response was, let's continue this. So at the first of the year, let's have some regular disability employment stakeholders convenings. I'll supply lunch, and we can just really start laying the groundwork, just sharing information, schools, employers, government agencies. And so we can start networking and really laying out some of the work, and then some of the issues that we need to mobilize and advocate for together. Because right now we're so siloed and we're all frustrated and feeling very alienated, and I think even hopeless and even a sense of despair. And so wanting to bring us all together and moving forward together.
And I think I think it's going to take continued work from people like you to create. People talk about breaking down the silos. I think breaking down the silos is going to be met with resistance because everybody has built up their own silo, and it's their own little piece of the larger picture, right? So
Mhm.
instead of breaking down the silo, let's build bridges. Let's make connections, let's network, like
Mhm.
what you're talking about.
Exactly.
And just knowing who needs to be at the table, I think, though, is sometimes overwhelming for people as they go out and they try to advocate for folks. So in your experience, what is the wormholes? What are the wormholes that you've gone down and then decided this one's a dead end? I really need to make a connection over here. What are some of the better connections that we can look at?
I think one of the things that we can do, one of the goals of the Disability Employment Stakeholders Luncheon is to create a safe space so that we can really be honest about the challenges. So often we say what we are supposed to say and what it is safe to say. We will say, fill out this paperwork so we can begin the transition process, when really filling out the paperwork is merely a compliance, CYA measure. And it is, they don't tell the parents that this is all I'm going to do. I'm going to get this information. I'm going to prove that I reached out to you. And then I'm going to say, we don't have enough job coaches. Oh, well, or we got a waiting list. And so coming together and saying, here are the issues. And then just like we said, because what a lot of this work for me, it's all personal. And so I was really frustrated at filling out paperwork, taking off work and coming to meetings and not getting any results. And so I finally asked, what is going on? When will Kendall get job training experience? When is someone going to roll up their sleeves and actually work with him? And so then it was crickets, followed by there's not enough job coaches. And so I said, and then one time they said, well, let's switch agencies. So we switched agencies and I didn't hear back from the agencies. So I finally said in the subject line of my email, notice number 4 or request number 4. And then it was, oh, hey, Kim.
Yep.
And it was the same thing. Well, we haven't reached out because we have a waiting list. And so I was sharing with someone, I've wasted all this time. And why didn't someone just tell me that no one can work with them? And I said, well, even if they could, I'm concerned that he would be paired with a petite white woman. He's going to have anxiety, and which is going to result in behaviors. They're out in the community, and someone with no context is going to call the police. He's not going to obey the police's commands, and he's going to be shot and killed. So I wish that my cousin, who just moved back to town and is willing to be his job coach, could act in that role. And they said, oh, well, he can't be his job coach because that is a conflict of interest. But
Sean?
he could be his personal attendant.
Yeah. So
And
what's up with that?
so that's where our role of doing something revolutionary, like just being honest with parents about the job coach situation and just saying, let's mobilize friends and families who want to serve in this capacity, and let's create a cohort. And so that's what the Transition Academy has been is looking to do. And we're saying, let's bring everyone to the table, have some honest exchanges, and create some solutions.
That's one of the things that we actually were talking about at our state level. Sean and I is on that work group as well, about these things we're calling super workers. So it can cross systems, Kim. So they can be the personal attendant care. Sean, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Well, there's two pieces in Kansas talking about. One is if I've got that person that works well with my child, especially my child with autism. And Kim, mine is 6'8" and 270 pounds. And so And so
Yeah.
I absolutely get you. Um, and so why can't a family have that one person that works well with their child make a 30 to 40 hour a week job out of doing everything that child needs? And the KDADS at the state of Kansas is actually taking that seriously as a recommendation, I think. And the other piece is something called individual budget authority. And that's, some states allow this. And what that is that, if my child is on the developmental disabilities waiver, let's say there's a plan of care for $6,000 a month for their care, I give that family that $6,000 a month instead of forcing it to be paid to inadequate providers. And the family can use that money not for anything, but from a range of things. A home modification if your child elopes, building a ramp, getting a bathroom modification, hiring somebody for $40 an hour who understands behavior instead of somebody $10 an hour that's going to make your behavior worse. It's been very successful in other states. And so that's something that's going to be pushed here coming up with a lot of the waiver renewals in Kansas to make sure that's an option.
Oh, and see, Sean, that's an example of when we get to doing that state of disabilities and transition work, some best practices, some policy work
Yeah.
that's being done, and that will be tackled. And Sean, I love when you give the example of in Kansas VR, a person can actually have a used car purchase. But in Missouri, you can't. And so Missouri's VR plan doesn't allow that. So even being able to kind of study and compare, contrast Missouri and Kansas, and that would be enlightening to people to say, okay, let's go down this path, because a lot of people they have no idea where to go, and they're overwhelmed when we start talking, because it's almost like a big purge. And so so those listening sessions would be crucial at helping to dissect it.
Well, we're just about out of time here. Kim, I want to thank you so much for coming. This topic is one that we've talked a lot about at IBT, like ever since the protest and George Floyd's killing first happened. And, just being, able to say, make a stronger statement than I stand in solidarity, right? Because that is like you said, it's sort of like CYA, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so I personally, I don't know everybody else on here, really appreciates you coming on and sharing your experiences and sharing all the really, really wonderful work that you've been doing, and how so like sometimes it feels overwhelming, but look what you've been able to accomplish as one person, right? It's incredible. And so I know that there's people on here that would like to reach out and talk to you. I would like to be able to try to get you onto the Kansas side a little bit and maybe talk to our state regulators. Sean might be able to help with that as well. But if people want to reach out to you, is that okay, Kim?
Absolutely. I definitely would love to hear from folks.
And Kim, we have in the last year, Kansas University Center of Developmental Disabilities, which I got a grant from Administration and Community Living to do a deep dive into transition in Kansas. And we actually got 2 renewal grants, a 3-year and a 5-year.
Wow.
To further that, and that's just brand new, October 1st. And so what I would like to do is set up a time to meet with you and talk about infusing some of what you've talked about into some of the work we're doing, and inviting you to be a part of that group. And I'm going to send you the report that we developed, the policy report we developed out of that group here, so you'll see that coming from me.
Okay.
Well, we are so proud that as IBT we could host you, Kim. I mean, you're a celebrity. And we really, really appreciate the fact that you took the time out of your day to come talk to us.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm honored to be asked to sit in with you all.
Yeah, so thank you very much. And for those of you, if you want a continuing ed certificate, just let Kayla know. And otherwise, thank you so much for coming today. And we look forward to seeing you at our next one. Thank you, guys.
Right.